The man kneeling on the polished marble floor barely resembled the confident executive he had once been. Tyler Brooks's $1,000 suit was wrinkled and stained with dust. His perfectly styled hair had fallen across his forehead, and both hands trembled uncontrollably as he stared at the man seated before him. "Please," he whispered, his voice cracking. "You don't have to do this. I'll return every dollar. I'll disappear. Just, please don't destroy my life." Lucien Moreau, the billionaire whose quiet business empire concealed one of New York's most feared criminal organizations, didn't answer. Instead, he slowly turned his head toward the plus-size woman standing calmly beside him. She wore a simple navy business suit, no expensive jewelry, no dramatic makeup, only quiet confidence. Lucien's deep voice broke the silence. "Megan," he paused, "if I leave his future in your hands, do you think he deserves the mercy he never gave you?" The entire room stopped breathing. No one knew how she would answer. 6 months earlier, the Friday evening crowd filled Bellucci's steakhouse with laughter, clinking glasses, and the soft notes of a jazz quartet playing near the windows. To everyone else, it was another elegant night in Manhattan. To Megan Lawson, it was supposed to be the beginning of forever. She had spent nearly 2 hours getting ready. After trying on half the dresses in her closet, she had finally chosen a deep blue dress that gently embraced her soft curves instead of hiding them. She had even curled her chestnut hair, something she rarely bothered to do anymore. Tyler had insisted tonight was important. "We're celebrating our future," he had said over the phone. For the first time in months, she allowed herself to believe him. When Tyler finally arrived, nearly 20 minutes late, he barely smiled. "You look nice," he said absently, while checking a notification on his phone. Nice. Not beautiful. Not stunning. Just nice. Megan ignored the familiar sting. She had learned long ago not to expect compliments from Tyler. Over the past 3 years, they had quietly disappeared, replaced by suggestions. "You'd look amazing if you lost 15 pounds. Maybe skip dessert. That dress would fit better after another few weeks at the gym." Each comment sounded reasonable on its own. Together, they had slowly convinced Megan that every flaw in their relationship could somehow be traced back to the number on her scale. After ordering dinner, Tyler barely touched the menu. Instead, he folded his hands together. "We need to talk." Her heartbeat slowed. Something inside her already knew. What happened? Tyler sighed dramatically. "You've always been a wonderful person." The sentence felt like the opening line of a funeral. But he looked directly into her eyes. "I can't keep pretending this relationship still works." Megan frowned. "I don't understand." "You will." He leaned back comfortably. "The truth is, I've changed." His eyes drifted over her body. "You haven't." She instinctively crossed her arms. "I've been trying. I joined the fitness program you recommended. I changed my diet. I know," he interrupted without emotion. "But you're still," he searched for the word, "too chubby." Time stopped. The conversations around them blurred into meaningless noise. Megan could hear only those 2 words, "too chubby." She felt as if the entire restaurant had suddenly become silent. "I thought," she whispered, "I thought you loved me." Tyler almost laughed. "I did, but successful men have options." He shrugged. "And honestly, no man building a serious future wants a woman who has let herself go." The words hit harder than a slap. Before Megan could respond, Tyler reached into his jacket pocket. He placed a small silver apartment key on the table. "I'm moving out." Her breathing became shallow. "Is there someone else?" Instead of answering, Tyler smiled toward the restaurant entrance. Megan turned. A stunning blonde woman walked confidently through the front doors. Every head seemed to follow her. Designer heels, luxury handbag, perfect posture. Vanessa Cole, one of New York's fastest-rising lifestyle influencers. She walked directly toward their table. Without hesitation, she slipped her arm through Tyler's. "So," Vanessa said with an amused smile, "this is Megan?" Tyler nodded casually. "Megan, this is Vanessa." Neither of them bothered pretending. Vanessa studied Megan for a second before offering a sympathetic smile that felt colder than open cruelty. "I'm sorry. I know breakups are difficult." Then she lowered her voice, just enough to make the words feel personal. "But sometimes people simply outgrow each other." Tyler chuckled. "I told you she'd understand eventually." Megan stared at both of them. 3 years, 3 birthdays, 3 Christmas mornings, thousands of tiny sacrifices, reduced to a public performance. She slowly stood from the table. Her legs felt weak. "I hope," she said quietly, fighting back tears, "that one day both of you discover the difference between beauty and kindness." Tyler simply picked up his wine glass. "You'll survive. You always do." Without another word, Megan walked away. She refused to let them see her cry. But the moment the restaurant doors closed behind her, the tears came anyway. She had no idea that losing Tyler Brooks would become the greatest turning point of her life. Because 6 months later, the same man who had mocked her for being too chubby would be kneeling in front of the most feared man in New York. And the decision that would determine his future would belong to her alone. 6 months transformed Megan Lawson in ways no mirror could measure. She still wore comfortable business suits. She still preferred practical shoes over expensive heels. She was still the same woman Tyler had dismissed as too chubby. But something fundamental had changed. She no longer walked into a room hoping someone would choose her. She walked in determined to prove her work could speak louder than anyone's opinion. Belmont Hospitality quickly became the only place where she felt completely in control. Numbers never judged. Ledgers never mocked. Every balance sheet represented a puzzle waiting to be solved, and Megan possessed an extraordinary ability to notice patterns other analysts overlooked. Within 4 months, department heads quietly began requesting her assistance whenever complicated financial discrepancies appeared. By the 6th month, even senior executives stopped questioning her conclusions. They simply asked one question: "Has Megan reviewed it?" On a rainy Tuesday morning, Megan arrived at Belmont headquarters before sunrise, balancing a paper cup of coffee and a laptop bag as she crossed the marble lobby. The building was unusually quiet. Only security staff and a few executives ever arrived this early. She nodded politely to the receptionist before taking the elevator to the executive finance floor. Her manager, Charlotte Hayes, was already waiting outside Megan's office. "There you are," Charlotte said, looking relieved. "We have a problem." Megan set her coffee down. "What happened?" "Audit found inconsistencies in one of our investment subsidiaries." Charlotte handed over a thick folder. "I've had 3 analysts review it. They all say everything balances." Charlotte hesitated. "But something doesn't feel right." Megan accepted the folder. "I'll take a look." For the next several hours, the outside world disappeared. Invoices, transfer confirmations, tax filings, corporate ownership records. Every page looked perfectly legitimate. Too legitimate. That was what bothered her. Someone had worked exceptionally hard to make these transactions appear ordinary. She enlarged one spreadsheet on her monitor, then another. Finally, she leaned closer. "There you are." The difference was almost invisible. A sequence of recurring payments moved through several shell investment companies before returning to one of Belmont's legitimate hotel development accounts. Each individual transfer was small enough to avoid triggering automated compliance alerts. Together, they represented millions of dollars. Megan frowned. Why hide money that's already legal? That question refused to leave her mind. She built a new tracking model from scratch, connecting dozens of seemingly unrelated accounts. The deeper she looked, the stranger the picture became. Some of the receiving companies existed only on paper. Others listed executives who had resigned years earlier. One investment address belonged to an empty office building in New Jersey. Someone wasn't merely moving money. Someone was laundering stolen assets through Belmont's legitimate business network. A quiet knock interrupted her concentration. Charlotte stepped inside. "How bad is it?" Megan slowly turned her monitor. "I can't prove fraud yet, but I can prove these transactions don't belong here." Charlotte studied the screen. "Who authorized them?" "I don't know. Not yet." Charlotte remained silent for several seconds before making a decision. "Come with me." They entered a private elevator, requiring executive security clearance. Instead of stopping on the upper administrative floors, the elevator continued higher. Much higher. Finally, the doors opened onto an entire floor, unlike anything Megan had ever seen. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked Manhattan. Original artwork decorated the walls. Everything felt elegant. Quiet. Powerful. Charlotte stopped outside a pair of dark walnut doors. She knocked once. A calm voice answered. "Come in." Megan stepped inside. The office was enormous without feeling extravagant. Bookshelves stretched from floor to ceiling. A fireplace burned quietly despite the summer weather. Behind a large desk sat a man reviewing several documents. Lucien Moreau. He looked up only after finishing the page he was reading. His expression remained calm, controlled, almost impossible to interpret. "So," he said evenly, "you're Megan Lawson." She nodded. "Yes, sir. I've heard your name." She wasn't sure whether that should make her nervous. Lucien closed the folder before him. "Charlotte tells me you found something 3 experienced analysts missed." "I found irregularities," Megan corrected carefully. "I haven't reached a conclusion." A faint smile appeared. Most people exaggerated their accomplishments. She was doing the opposite. "Show me." Megan connected her laptop to the conference display. For nearly 20 minutes, she explained every transaction, every ownership structure, and every inconsistency without once relying on speculation. Whenever she didn't know an answer, she simply admitted it. "I don't know yet. I need more evidence. I'd rather verify before making accusations." Lucien never interrupted. When she finished, silence filled the room. Finally, he asked one question. "If someone intentionally designed this system, how intelligent would they have to be?" Megan considered it carefully. "Very. They understand corporate law, tax regulations, international banking, and human psychology." Lucien raised an eyebrow. "Human psychology?" She nodded. "They know exactly how much complexity people are willing to ignore." For the first time during the meeting, Lucien smiled. It was brief, almost imperceptible, but genuine. After Megan left the office, Charlotte glanced toward him. "Well?" Lucien looked through the glass wall as Megan disappeared into the hallway. Most people chase attention. He folded his hands. "She chases the truth." He paused. "Assign her directly to this investigation." Charlotte hesitated. "Without telling her who may be involved?" "Correct." Lucien's eyes drifted back toward the financial reports still displayed on the monitor. Someone inside his legitimate business empire had been quietly stealing millions. And for reasons he couldn't yet explain, he trusted Megan Lawson to uncover the truth. Neither of them realized that before the week ended, one familiar name would appear inside those financial records: Tyler Brooks. Megan had reviewed thousands of financial reports throughout her career. Most of them told ordinary stories: profits, losses, taxes, investments. But every once in a while, numbers told the story of a lie. 3 days after meeting Lucien Moreau, She sat alone in the secure audit room on Belmont's executive floor. The lights had dimmed automatically hours ago, leaving only the glow of 3 computer monitors reflecting across her glasses. Half-empty coffee cups surrounded her keyboard. Charlotte had gone home. The rest of the finance department had long since disappeared. Only Megan remained. She enlarged another transaction map. Millions of dollars had flowed through 8 different investment companies before quietly returning to Belmont's legitimate hospitality accounts. At first glance, the movement looked perfectly legal. At second glance, it looked engineered. She highlighted another corporation, then another. A pattern slowly emerged. Every shell company shared one outside financial consultant. Brooks Strategic Capital. The name tightened something inside her chest. No. She immediately opened the registration documents. Corporate records, tax filings, ownership certificates. Her heartbeat grew louder with every page. Finally, the managing partner's signature appeared at the bottom of the screen. Tyler Brooks. She leaned back in silence. For several seconds, she simply stared. Out of every financial consultant in New York, it was him. The same man who had laughed at her. The same man who had convinced her she wasn't attractive enough to deserve love. The same man who had walked away with Vanessa without a second thought. Now his name sat at the center of a multi-million-dollar fraud investigation. Megan closed her eyes. This can't be a coincidence. She forced herself to breathe. Emotion had no place in an audit. If Tyler was innocent, the evidence would prove it. If he was guilty, the evidence would prove that too. Nothing else mattered. She reopened the files. Another 2 hours passed. By midnight, the picture had become impossible to ignore. Tyler hadn't merely advised the companies. He had created many of them. Several directors listed on corporate paperwork didn't actually exist. Addresses led to abandoned office suites. Digital signatures had been copied across multiple filings. The fraud wasn't accidental. It had been carefully constructed over several years. Someone knocked softly on the open office door. Megan looked up. Lucien stood quietly in the hallway, without security, without an assistant. Just a tailored charcoal suit and the calm expression that never seemed to change. "I thought everyone had gone home." She smiled awkwardly. "I lost track of time." His eyes moved toward the untouched sandwich sitting beside her keyboard. "You also lost track of dinner." Megan looked embarrassed. "I wasn't hungry." Lucien glanced at the paperwork covering the conference table. "No, you were focused." He walked closer. "What did you find? What did you find?" Instead of answering immediately, Megan handed him a folder. "I need you to see the documents before I tell you." Lucien opened the file. The first few pages produced no visible reaction. Then, he reached the ownership records. His expression hardened, almost imperceptibly. "Brooks Strategic Capital." Megan nodded. "I verified everything 3 times. I wanted to be certain." Lucien continued reading. The room remained silent. When he finished, he closed the folder carefully. "Are you personally connected to Tyler Brooks?" The question caught her off guard. She hesitated, then nodded once. "He was." Lucien waited. "He was my boyfriend." Another pause. "We ended our relationship 6 months ago." Lucien didn't ask why. He simply studied her face. "You can step away from this investigation if necessary." She looked surprised. "You think I can't be objective? I think you've been hurt." His voice remained calm. "And I don't ask injured people to make difficult decisions." For reasons Megan couldn't explain. Those words affected her more than any compliment ever had. Not because he questioned her ability. Because he acknowledged her pain without defining her by it. She shook her head. "I can finish the investigation. You have my word." Lucien held her gaze for a long moment. "I believe you." The conversation ended there. No dramatic speeches. No unnecessary sympathy. Just trust. As Lucian reached the doorway, he stopped. "Miss Lawson." "Yes?" "When this investigation is over, I hope you understand something." She frowned slightly. "What?" "The man who walked away from you wasn't qualified to recognize your value." Then he quietly left the room. Megan remained frozen. No one had ever defended her without expecting something in return. Not even her own family. The next morning, Tyler Brooks woke, believing his biggest concern was preparing for a presentation with several luxury hotel investors. Business had never been better. Vanessa's growing online fame had introduced him to wealthy clients. His fraudulent investment network had already generated millions. Everything was finally coming together. Until his assistant rushed into his office. "We have a problem." Tyler frowned. "What now?" "The Belmont account." His stomach tightened. "What about it?" "They've requested a complete forensic audit." The color drained from his face. "Who authorized it?" "We don't know. But whoever did, they're asking questions no one has ever asked before." Tyler immediately opened his laptop. His hands moved faster than ever before. He logged into the offshore servers, checked transaction histories, verified backup accounts. Everything looked secure. Almost everything. One file wouldn't open. Another had been copied. A third showed an internal access record he didn't recognize. Someone was already inside his system. His phone rang. Vanessa. He ignored it. Another notification appeared. Belmont Hospitality requested his attendance at an executive financial review scheduled for Friday morning. Mandatory. Tyler stared at the email. A cold sensation spread through his chest. For the first time in years, he wasn't controlling the situation. Somewhere inside Belmont, someone knew. He just didn't know who. Friday morning arrived beneath a gray Manhattan sky. A steady rain tapped against the towering glass walls of Belmont headquarters, casting long silver streaks down the windows overlooking the city. By 9 o'clock, every seat inside the executive boardroom had been filled. Senior investors, corporate attorneys, outside auditors, board members, even Detective Owen Price from the Financial Crimes Division sat quietly near the back of the room at Belmont's invitation. No one understood why a routine financial review required such an unusual audience. Only Lucien Moreau appeared completely at ease. He sat at the head of the long walnut conference table, calmly stirring a cup of black coffee, while the executives exchanged nervous glances. Charlotte entered first. Behind her walked Megan. She carried only a slim laptop and a single leather folder. There was no dramatic entrance, no expensive designer outfit, no attempt to command attention. Yet several executives instinctively turned toward her. Over the past week, word had quietly spread through Belmont that the young financial analyst had uncovered something significant. Exactly what? No one knew. 5 minutes later, the conference room doors opened again. Tyler Brooks entered wearing a tailored navy suit that projected confidence far more successfully than he actually felt. Vanessa Cole followed close behind, dressed elegantly as always. She smiled for everyone. Tyler did not. The moment he noticed Megan standing beside Lucien's chair, every ounce of color drained from his face. His steps slowed. "Megan?" She looked at him calmly. "Good morning, Mr. Brooks." The formal greeting somehow hurt more than open anger. Tyler forced an awkward smile. "I didn't know you worked here." "I do. For how long?" 6 months. His stomach tightened. 6 months. Exactly since the night he left her. He quickly looked toward Lucien. "You know each other," Lucien answered before Megan could. "Miss Lawson is part of my executive financial team." The room fell strangely quiet. Tyler suddenly remembered every cruel word he had ever spoken to her. No successful man would ever choose a woman like you. His own voice echoed mercilessly inside his head. Lucien placed his coffee cup on the table. Shall we begin? The lights dimmed. The large presentation screen illuminated. Megan stepped forward. Her hands remained steady. Her voice was calm, professional, completely free of emotion. Over the past 7 days, Belmont Hospitality conducted a forensic review of investment activity connected to several affiliated companies. She clicked the remote. A complex network of corporations appeared. Colored lines connected dozens of businesses across multiple states. Initially, these transactions appeared legitimate. However, she advanced to the next slide. Repeated analysis revealed coordinated financial manipulation involving false consulting agreements, fabricated corporate directors, and shell companies created for the purpose of diverting investment capital. Another click. The screen zoomed toward a single company, Brooks Strategic Capital. Several people in the room shifted uncomfortably. Tyler swallowed. Megan continued. Our investigation identified approximately $23 million that cannot be legally accounted for. Vanessa looked toward Tyler. What is she talking about? He ignored her. Megan calmly displayed another document. In addition, we confirmed that multiple electronic signatures were duplicated across separate legal entities. Several registered executives do not exist. The listed addresses include abandoned commercial properties. Every sentence tightened the invisible rope around Tyler's future. One investor finally interrupted. Mr. Brooks, is any of this inaccurate? Tyler immediately stood. This is ridiculous. Financial structures are complicated. Miss Lawson doesn't understand private investment strategy. Megan didn't react. Instead, she opened another file. I anticipated that response. The screen changed again. A timestamp appeared, then another, followed by banking authorization records, email correspondence, digital access logs, international wire confirmations. Everything perfectly organized, everything impossible to dismiss. Tyler felt genuine panic for the first time. He hadn't merely been discovered. He had been dismantled, document by document. Lucien watched silently, allowing the evidence to speak for itself. Vanessa slowly stepped away from Tyler. You told me everything was legal. It is. Tyler's voice cracked. I can explain. Detective Owen Price finally stood. I'm interested in hearing that explanation myself. He removed a leather badge wallet from inside his jacket. I've reviewed the evidence provided by Belmont's legal department. He looked directly at Tyler. If these records are authentic, you're facing charges including wire fraud, corporate theft, tax evasion, money laundering, and conspiracy. The room exploded into whispered conversations. You used me? I didn't. You told me you built your company yourself. I was protecting us. There is no us. She removed the diamond bracelet he had given her and placed it on the conference table. I don't date criminals. Without another word, she walked out. The heavy doors closed behind her. Tyler stood alone, completely alone. His breathing became shallow. His expensive suit suddenly felt unbearably heavy. His carefully constructed image had collapsed in less than 30 minutes. Then Lucien finally spoke. Mr. Brooks. Tyler turned. You publicly built your reputation on intelligence. Lucien's voice remained almost gentle. But intelligence without character eventually destroys itself. Tyler's knees weakened. He knew exactly who truly controlled Belmont now. He also understood that none of this could have happened without one person. Slowly, he turned toward Megan. She stood quietly beside the presentation screen. The same woman he once claimed no successful man would ever choose. The same woman he had laughed at in front of an entire restaurant. The same woman he believed would never recover after he left. Now she possessed enough evidence to erase everything he had spent years building. His shoulders collapsed. Pride no longer mattered. Reputation no longer mattered. Only survival remained. In front of executives, police investigators, investors, and everyone whose respect he had once desperately wanted, Tyler slowly lowered himself onto both knees. "Megan," his voice shook uncontrollably. "I'm begging you. I know I hurt you. I know I was cruel, but please, tell them not to ruin my life." Tears blurred his vision. "I'll repay every dollar. I'll disappear forever. I'll do anything. Please, have mercy." The room became perfectly silent. Every eye turned toward Megan. Lucien slowly rose from his chair. He walked toward her before stopping at her side. Then, in a calm voice heard throughout the boardroom, he asked the same question that would later echo in everyone's memory. "If I leave his future in your hands, do you believe he deserves the mercy he never showed you?" No one moved. No one breathed. Megan looked down at the broken man kneeling before her. 6 months ago, she would have given almost anything just to hear him apologize. Now, she wasn't sure she felt anything at all. The silence inside the boardroom stretched for several long seconds. Tyler remained on his knees. His shoulders shook. His eyes never left Megan's face. For the first time since she had known him, he looked small. Not because he had lost his money, not because the evidence had destroyed his career, but because the arrogance that had once defined him had finally disappeared. "Megan," his voice was barely audible. "I know I don't deserve another chance. I know saying I'm sorry can't erase what I did. But please, I don't want my life to end like this." 6 months earlier, those words would have broken her. She would have searched desperately for signs that he still loved her. Now, she searched only for the truth. She looked at the man who had spent years convincing her she wasn't enough. The man who criticized every meal she ate, every dress she wore, every family photograph she appeared in. The man who slowly convinced her that if she just lost a little more weight, maybe then, she would finally deserve love. She realized something that surprised even herself. She wasn't angry anymore. She was free. Lucien remained quietly beside her. He didn't interrupt. He didn't pressure her. The decision truly belonged to Megan. She took one slow step toward Tyler. He looked up with desperate hope. "Megan," she spoke gently, "do you remember what you told me the night you left?" Tyler lowered his eyes. "I remember. You said no successful man would ever choose a woman who looked like me." His face tightened with shame. "I was wrong. You were cruel. I know." "You didn't just end a relationship," she continued calmly. "You spent years convincing me that my value depended on someone else's approval." Tyler closed his eyes. "I'm sorry. I know. You've said that several times today." She smiled sadly. "But an apology doesn't erase a decision." She paused. "And forgiveness doesn't erase consequences." Another long silence settled across the room. Every executive listened. Every investor watched. Even Detective Owen Price waited without speaking. Finally, Megan looked toward Lucien. "My decision isn't about revenge." Lucien nodded once. She turned toward Detective Price. "The evidence should follow the law. I don't want special punishment. And I don't want special mercy." She looked back at Tyler. "If you committed these crimes, then you should answer for them the same way anyone else would." Tyler's final hope disappeared. His head slowly lowered. Detective Price stepped forward. "Mr. Brooks, I'm placing you under arrest for financial fraud, conspiracy, wire fraud, and related offenses." Tyler didn't resist. He simply extended his hands. As the detective secured the handcuffs, Tyler looked toward Megan one final time. "I really did love you." Megan's expression remained peaceful. "No," she answered softly. "You loved the version of me you thought would never leave. You never loved the woman I actually was." Tyler couldn't respond. The detective quietly escorted him from the boardroom. The heavy doors closed behind them. This time, they closed forever. One by one, the executives also began leaving. Some shook Megan's hand, others quietly thanked her. Several investors congratulated Charlotte for building such an exceptional finance team. Within minutes, the enormous boardroom became almost empty. Only Lucien and Megan remained. Rain still fell beyond the windows. Manhattan stretched endlessly below them. Lucien walked toward the conference table and picked up the leather folder containing the investigation. He closed it. "This company avoided a disaster because of you." Megan smiled modestly. "I was just doing my job." "No." He looked directly at her. "You were doing what very few people are willing to do. You chose honesty when dishonesty would have been easier. You stayed objective, even when the investigation became personal. You never once asked what was in it for you." His voice remained calm. "But there is something I would like to offer." She looked at him curiously. Lucien reached into his briefcase and placed a thin envelope on the table. Inside was a new employment contract. Senior Director of Financial Integrity. The position had never existed before. Until now. Megan stared at the document. "This is for me?" "It is." She looked at the salary. Her eyes widened. "It's far too much." Lucien smiled. "No. It's exactly what your value has always been. For too long. Other people decided what you were worth. I have no intention of repeating their mistake." For a moment, Megan couldn't speak. Not because of the promotion, not because of the salary. Because for the first time in years, someone saw her completely. Not her appearance. Not her weight. Not her past. Simply her character. She accepted the folder with both hands. "I'd be honored." Lucien extended his hand. Instead of a formal handshake, she found herself laughing softly. "So," she asked, "does this mean I'm working even longer hours?" Lucien actually laughed. A quiet, genuine laugh few people had ever heard. "I'm afraid so. But this time, you won't be carrying the responsibility alone." Several weeks later, headlines across New York reported one of the city's largest corporate fraud convictions in recent history. Tyler Brooks accepted a plea agreement that required full financial restitution and years of imprisonment. Vanessa quietly disappeared from social media for several months after investigators revealed she had unknowingly benefited from Tyler's stolen money. Belmont Hospitality recovered nearly every missing dollar, but Megan rarely thought about Tyler anymore. She had discovered something much more valuable than revenge: self-worth. Some evenings, after the office lights dimmed, Lucien would find her studying financial reports, long after everyone else had gone home. He would place a fresh cup of coffee beside her, without interrupting. Sometimes they talked about business. Sometimes about books. Sometimes they simply watched the city lights together in comfortable silence. Nothing happened quickly. Nothing felt forced. There were no dramatic declarations. Only mutual respect growing quietly into something neither of them had expected. Because the strongest kind of love isn't built on perfection. It's built on being fully seen and fully accepted. Thank you for spending time with Megan and Lucien on their journey from heartbreak to healing. If this story reminded you that your value is never determined by someone who failed to recognize it, please consider liking this video, subscribing to the channel, and sharing it with someone who might need that reminder today. And tell us in the comments, if you had been standing where Megan stood, would you have chosen forgiveness or simply justice?